beautiful dolly friends. I'm Dr. Doll and welcome to another video. I'm thinking about doing something a little bit crazy again. What's new? So for my Valentine's Day video this year, I dyed a doll pink just kind of for the heck of it. And it actually was really popular, and I had a lot of people who were super disappointed that I didn't actually finish making a doll. There were a lot of people who were like, oh, I wish that you could have actually finished a doll with the pink base, because I just sold it as a base, and everyone was so disappointed. They're like, we really wanted to see the full finished product. So it kind of got me thinking, and I bought a couple more dyes, and I have this gorgeous sapphire blue. It's called Sapphire Blue. How perfect is that? And I have a TLC doll. You okay over there? So I have this TLC Sonali mold, and so I have a TLC doll to work on, and I've been deciding on what to do with her. She has a beautiful Sonali mold, and she has this rather large pen mark on her cheek, which I've already tried to get off. I've done one oxy treatment, and it didn't really lift hardly at all. And so I think I could get it off with oxy. When you have a little bit darker skin tone, you can do the benzoyl peroxide, but it's kind of a pain in the butt to because you have to bleach it basically, and then I think I've heard that by using heat, then it'll basically go back to kind of the natural color. But I was thinking maybe instead of that, I'll just dye her a really fun color. But I'm a little bit scared because I've never dyed a doll with this skin tone before, and I'm not sure how it's going to come out. I bought this really fun, it's called Sapphire Blue. I mean, it looks like sapphire blue. And I'm hoping that it's dark enough that it will look blue. Because I was reading on Rit's website, and they were kind of giving advice on how to dye different colored fabrics, and you could choose either the synthetic or the non-synthetic version. And basically it's just hey, if it's a darker color than the original, you'll be fine. I'm hoping that this is dark enough that it'll just take over, but if not, I did a couple of test runs, and sometimes it comes out more teal because of her undertones. It comes out as more of a tealy blue or even navy, and I'm okay with that. I think those are beautiful colors, but I don't know, but I want to try it. I think it'd be really cool. I have this fantasy doll in mind, and I really want to go for it, and I think the Sonali mold is perfect. It's gorgeous. It's one of my preferred molds to do customs on. So I think I'm just going to go for it and hope that it comes out. So stay tuned. So when she came out of the dye pot, I knew I was going to have to change my original plans a little bit. Originally, I was inspired to create a blue fantasy custom from a video by Enchantorium, where she made an Arctic Fox custom from a Prowess Smart Doll in the color Interstellar Blue. Originally, I was planning to do something similar with a cute kawaii look similar to the doll I saw her make, Perhaps rather predictably, my doll came out a little bit more of a darker navy blue, which is a beautiful color, but I didn't think it would work with my original plan. Immediately, I started thinking of another direction that I could go in, and Mystique from X-Men came to mind. Now, as much as I think Mystique would be an awesome character to use for a custom, I have to be completely honest. I'm just not that huge of an X-Men fan. Sure, I mean, I've watched the movies, I'm familiar with the comics, but it's just not a series that I'm like super passionate about, and that made it kind of difficult to really get into making her as a character. Now, while I'm not super nerdy in a comic book way, I am super nerdy about video games. Growing up with a brother who was 7 years older than me meant that we didn't have a ton of shared interests. One thing that we did bond over, however, was our mutual love of video games, and playing games together is one of my favorite childhood memories I still have today. One of my favorite game series of all time is Mass Effect. The Mass Effect games all take place in an alternate universe where space travel is common and human technology is much more advanced than it is here in the real world. In this alternate universe, there are several different alien races that play a huge role throughout. One of these is the Asari. The Asari are a monogendered race who are known for their elegance, diplomacy, and yes, having blue skin. They have unusually long lives, with most Asari reaching the ripe age of 1,000 before they pass away. Because of this, they are known and respected throughout the known universe because of their wisdom. I personally have always loved the Asari because they are refined and elegant, but also know how to roll up their sleeves and get the job done. They have a strong sense of justice as well as a deep sense of morality, which is something that personally I admire. They are in constant search of truth and bettering themselves as well as everyone around them. So it's not difficult to see why they are so well respected throughout the Mass Effect games. The two most well-known Asari characters in the games are probably Liara T'Soni and Samara. And while I love both of these characters, I don't think I'm going to make my doll look exactly like any one in particular, but rather I'd like to pick and choose attributes from both of them as well as from a few lesser known Asari characters. I realize that there's probably a great majority of my viewers that have no idea what I'm talking about when it comes to the Mass Effect games or the Asari, and I totally get that. I realize that this is a very like specific custom, but once the idea was in my head, I was so excited about it that I just had to do it. I was just way too stoked about it. So this is kind of me just doing it purely because I'm a nerd and I love these games. So right here I am just trying to put some dark shadowing along that water line. I noticed as I zoomed in on a lot of pictures of Asari, they seem to have a really smoky, dark, like inner eye, like waterline area. I really spent way too much time fiddling with makeup and face markings before I even sculpted the head, which was really silly because I ended up having to redo all of it anyways. Um, so a lot of the Asari have facial markings. Liara has the freckles, which look a little bit more human-like, but some of them get pretty elaborate. And originally, I wanted to go with a pretty like elaborate facial marking like pattern. I ended up changing my mind though, since I had to redo it anyways. And you'll kind of see later when I get to the sculpting portion why it didn't really work out, but I think instead I'm going to go more in the freckle direction and just make her look a little bit more human-like. I think it'll look really nice. Okay, so I am getting ready to put the eyes in. I decided on fixed eyes because I've just been obsessed with them lately. So I'm getting my epoxy sculpt ready to put them in place. Now, I went back and forth on what color I should use. I really spent so much time like swapping out different colors, seeing what they would look like, and I could have gone in a lot of directions. Basically, in the games, the Asari can have lots of different eye colors, kind of like humans. Yellow, brown, blue, violet. There's just lots of different options. Samara has super like icy blue eyes, and Liara has like more sky blue eyes, and so I kind of ended up going the blue route. I just thought I didn't want to create too much contrast, and she's already going to look, alien enough with sort of the tentacles on her head. I thought blue would be a nice, just sort of complementary choice, so that's what I ended up going with. So here are her eyes in place, and now that that's done, I am going to glue the top of her head back on and let that dry. Okay, once her head is dry, it is time to get to sculpting. Now this this was such a learning experience. I cannot emphasize enough how I really just underestimated how much time and effort it was going to take. So the Asari have these sort of like tendrils coming off of the back of their head, and I really wanted to do it justice. I didn't want to make it sloppy. And so I'm using epoxy sculpt here in 2 parts. You have about a 30-minute window for it to be malleable before it starts to set. So I really tried to lay out, I looked at tons of pictures online. You can see my laptop there with pictures up. How, from all angles, what the head looks like. I tried really hard to be as accurate as possible. Some of it I had to take a little bit of, liberties with. I couldn't get every single possible angle, but I did my best. Probably the biggest discrepancy is that the Asari don't have ears, and there was just no way for me to really cover up the ears in a way that looked aesthetically pleasing, so I ended up leaving them, but you'll see. This whole process was just painstakingly, it took forever. Once I was finally done sculpting, it took about 2 full days to cure completely. There was just so much material. And then I started sanding. And, well,
what I thought was going to be a 1 or 2 hour job turned out to be a 14-hour job. Needless to say, the sanding took a lot longer than I had originally anticipated. Just the amount of material I had to sand down and get smooth, and the most difficult part was getting it flush with the vinyl, so that it looked like one fluid, like one solid piece, rather than just a headdress or a hat stuck on top of a head. It took so long, and it was like, just when I'd think I was done, I'd realize, nope, there's still more that needs to be done. I also tried a lot of different sanding techniques. I tried a drill bit with some sandpaper. I tried some metal files. I tried doing it by hand. What seemed to work the best as far as taking material off was using a metal drill bit. And then as far as getting things smooth and flush, doing it by hand, while it was really slow, seemed to look the best. So once I was finally done with all of that, I wanted to sculpt. There's these little tiny points on top of the tendrils that give them more of a like triangular shape. So I wanted to go ahead and sculpt those and get those on there so that they could cure.
Alright guys, so unfortunately I'm going to have to leave this video here. I'm going to have to divide this out into 2 different parts. I really wanted to finish this Asari project this week and get it all on one video, but it's just taking so much longer than I originally planned. I think the sanding alone has just been an enormous chunk of time. I have been working on her already for 2 weeks. This is going into the 3rd week. And it's gotten to the point where I have so much time invested in her that I just don't want to rush the finish and do it sloppy. Like, I want to do it properly. So instead of trying to like rush and get it all done this weekend, I'm just going to take a couple extra days and finish it in part 2. So I hope that you are enjoying this. It's a really different sort of doll custom than I've ever done before. I don't know how many of my viewers are into like science fiction and stuff like that. And I'm not really into science fiction, but I am really into video games. And Mass Effect 1 and 2 definitely are some of my favorite games of all time. So this is a very like personal project, and it's definitely showing my nerdier side, which I'm fine with, you know. Like you guys already know that I play with dolls. You know, what's confessing to also loving video games at the same time. So anyways, I'm going to have to wrap this up in a part 2, probably in another 2 or 3 days. So I'm sorry I couldn't get it all out at once in one video, but again, I just don't want to like rush the finish. I just put some more epoxy sculpt on, and that has to cure for 24 hours. I still have more sanding to do. And then, of course, the painting and the finishing touches. And I just don't want to rush it. I want it to be really good. So anyways, I hope you enjoyed this part 1, and stay tuned for part 2 coming up hopefully soon. Bye, guys.